Welcome to Overcaffeinated and Out of Effs, the podcast for burned out, career-minded moms who are ready to stop pretending everything's fine and feel like themselves again. I'm your host, Christy Amir, burnout coach for moms, licensed therapist, and mom of two. And I'm here to help you reclaim your energy, your identity, and your peace of mind. Whether you're lying awake thinking about the 87 things you didn't get done, or silently resenting the people you love most, this is your space to feel seen, supported, and not so alone. So grab your coffee, hot, cold, or day old, and let's get into it. Before we begin, I want to share an important note for listeners. This episode includes discussion of sensitive topics, including trauma, addiction, and suicide. Listener discretion is advised. If these topics are triggering or feel too heavy for you right now, I encourage you to skip this episode or come back to it at another time. Please listen in a way that prioritizes your emotional well-being. There is no obligation to continue listening. This podcast is intended for informational and supportive purposes only and is not a substitute for therapy, mental health treatment, or professional advice. If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or distressed while listening, I encourage you to pause the episode and reach out to a trusted person or qualified mental health professional. And if you are in immediate danger or experiencing thoughts of harming yourself, please contact your local emergency number or, if you're in the U.S., call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You deserve support, and you don't have to go through this alone. Hey everybody, it's Christy. Welcome to Overcaffeinated and Out of Effs. In today's episode, I'd like to welcome our guest, Leah Johnson. Leah's resume includes the words Obama, Kay Hagan, and City Councilwoman. But what she has come to find out is that mom is the best title she's ever added. After a career that fueled her addiction to success and other things, life was dark and something had to change. Forced to step back, she reevaluated her priorities and started fresh in many ways. Now she lives with the freedom to be herself and know how far from perfect she is. As an imperfect mother of two, she sometimes says bad words, frequently forgets to pack snacks for school, and on occasion, her kids eat popsicles for breakfast. But she knows she is doing the best she can, and that's all people can do on their journey. She had a whole lot of traumas early in life that made the middle part tough. But through an intense spiritual awakening, a reevaluation of priorities, and kicking a few addictions, Leah has confronted her trauma, found a way to pull herself out of the depths of sadness, and finds herself on a lifelong journey to build a self-advocacy campaign to constantly find fantastic joy. So, I've invited Leah here today to share her personal story about parenting, her time working in politics and public affairs, and how she pulled herself out of some really challenging and dark places. So, Leah, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me, Christy.
Can you start just by telling us a little bit about yourself and your family?
Yeah. So I'm a mother of two. My kids are 8 and 12 now. I just had a middle schooler start. That's a whole new world and journey. But we live in Colorado.
Yeah.
We travel a lot and really lean into that as a experience for family growth and bonding. And yeah, we create a lot. We're creators. Part of my transformation has been morphing into an artist. And so that we spend a lot of time creating in our house as well. So
Okay. So when you talk about creating in your house and, doing a lot of art, it sounds like that's really a shared interest with the whole family.
yeah, for sure my daughter and I. And then, the boys jump in as they can and do.
Mhm.
But yeah, it started with like a room in the back of our house, and now it's like turned into that room and a room in the garage. That's my studio. And so we just it's surrounding us one way or another.
Sounds like it's taken over quite a bit of the house.
in the best way possible.
Yes, in the best way possible. So, I wanted to hear I was hoping that we could talk a little bit about, your career. So you've had this impressive career working in politics and public affairs. You did that for over 25 years. But you mentioned that it fed your addiction to success and other things and that life was dark. And I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about that time and what was going on for you then.
Yeah. So for a long time, I was seeking this external validation and external it's how I believed that I would find love and happiness and all of the things that I think we're seeking in life, right? And so, I had started out young in politics, really young, working in high school, and then I just kept going. I didn't stop, but in the middle of that too, I had all these other accolades and success, right? Like student body president, captain of the golf team, both in high school and college, prestigious university, just all of the things that, on paper, I looked like I was successful.
Mhm.
Uh, but after my mother passed away and we had a really challenging relationship, I think so much of my journey in that professional space and those accolades was about seeking her approval and getting that love that I was seeking. And when she passed away, it was like I was doubling down and I was looking for an even bigger pool. And, I ran for local office and I was successful at that. But I was deteriorating inside. I was falling apart. I was miserable. I was depressed. I had chronic PTSD. Then I had my second child while I was on counsel. And so I had postpartum depression. So I was in a very public role and internally just falling apart. And so, but I believed that the next success, that's what would make it better, to the
Mhm.
point where I was in such depths of darkness I, attempted suicide, and even after I mean, it was close, right? And it was scary, but even after that, I found myself a couple weeks later sitting in a room with community leaders talking about me running for higher office because that's what I thought would fix it. That's what I thought would make it better. And
Mhm.
finally, and when inevitable failures came, which they obviously did, I drank to fill the voids. And so I was just perpetuating these cycles of generational trauma and addiction that my mom had experienced. And I was, my kids were very little at this point, but I was reliving that life. And if I was successful at taking my own life, not only was I going to perpetuate the cycles, I was going to make it worse.
Mhm.
And so something clicked. My husband was like, "Is this really how you wanna live? Is this how you want your kids to live?" And he said it so pointedly, and it just landed. Something shifted,
Mhm.
and moment forward, I actually went to a rehab facility, um, and there I wrote my press release to withdraw from my reelection campaign, which was the single hardest thing to date still I've ever done, and that was almost 7 years ago now.
Wow.
Um, and, it was interesting once I wrote that and then actually sent it out, um, all the other things, like, alcohol became a like, I didn't really ever have a desire to drink again because I wasn't trying to fill this void of failure that I felt, and that's the thing, like, through the whole thing, all I did was wake up every day, and in my mind, I was like, "I'm a failure. I'm the worst mother. I'm the worst, community member. I'm not doing enough. I don't have it together enough." And all I wanted to do then was end my own life because I was so miserable and I hated myself so much.
Mhm.
But as I leaned into that, releasing it, it shifted everything. So
Well, and as I'm listening to you talk, I mean, one of the things that I heard you mention a few times is really this idea of success versus failure, right? Like you talked about looking for this external validation. You talked about, looking successful on the outside while really you were struggling on the inside, and then you were talking about circumstances where you were feeling like a failure, right? And so it sounds like that was something that really kind of shifted for you. And I'm curious, so like how did you notice like those definitions? Like how did success change for you once you had that realization and once you started to, make these changes?
Yeah, well, success really got flipped on its head, right? Because, like,
Mhm.
it turned around because suddenly I realized success was being healthy, success was healing, success was forgiving my mom and myself. And when I started to define success differently,
Mhm.
it and it takes time, right? Like, it's not a like, sure, there's, like, the lightning bolt moments of, finally writing that press release, but the the little bitty things that I had to do with myself to build self-love and self-compassion to get there, it was a daily, sometimes hourly journey, right? Like,
Mhm.
to lean into, I am not a terrible person. I don't have to live in this shame. I don't have to live in this guilt. And I started doing this little practice where, like, when things would come up, I would feel literally try and get it out of myself, the cringe moment, so to speak. And I would hold it and just wrap it in love and grace.
Mhm.
And some memories, I mean, I still have to do that with some things. It won't go away. Um, but, over time, like, when you do these little practices sometimes I would do that daily, and then I wouldn't do it for months, and then
Mhm.
getting back into it again. But it was years of that beforehand that allowed me to finally crack that open and say, "This isn't working. I'm not happy. I don't wanna live like this."
Mhm.
And as a woman who is, in a very public professional space, like, then it became important to me to tell that story because we think we have to have it all together, and we don't.
Mhm. Yeah, well, and to your point, so many high achieving moms, really there is this focus on success and it means different things to different people, but for so many of them, it really this idea of success becomes part of their identity, right? And you talk about, how, writing this press release was, the hardest thing that you've had to do in your life, and I'm curious, like, what was it like for you when you did begin to realize that all of these things that you had worked so hard for and it needed to change?
Well, I will say it took a lot more time because
Mhm.
even after I wrote that press release and sent it out, I still worked behind the scenes in politics for another 5 years. Like,
Mhm.
I it wasn't until about a year and a half ago that I, like, was like, "Okay, I for real quit. I'm out. Like, no more."
Mhm.
But I think that's the thing, right? Like, it just takes so much time to shed off all the supposed tos and all the layers of what I was told I should be
Mhm.
and finally realize who I was,
Mhm.
not w seeking approval, not seeking validation, not seeking awards or accomplishments, just being me.
Mhm.
I mean, it took a long time, and it was my identity. That was the only thing that I knew. I mean, I started in politics when I was 14, and I literally worked on a campaign every November until I didn't for 25 years.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
no, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask, you had mentioned that it was really your husband who had said to you, had brought this to your awareness and was like, "Is this how you wanna live? Is this what you want for yourself and your family?" And was that sort of the moment? Was that sort of the final thing that led you to decide, yes, I am gonna quit? Like, yes, I am gonna start doing things differently, or was it something else?
No, it was that.
It was
I mean,
that.
like, when
Mhm.
you're not in a good place, you know.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
you rationalize it. Yeah, I got really good at rationalizing, but I mean, it was bad. And,
Mhm.
multiple suicide attempts and just
Mhm.
the that feeling of, like, you're just the scum of the earth, like, this unworthiness, like, I just felt like there had to be more,
Mhm.
and, I'm sure that he'd said it many times before,
Yeah.
but it's also, like, when you're ready to hear it too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, and you had said, that deep down you knew, like he said
Yeah.
it out loud and maybe it took a while for you to really be able to hear it, but deep down you knew. And you also talked about how even 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 knowing the to the degree that you did, it was part of your identity, right? And so the change was still really hard. And so I'm curious, like once you did decide to make that change, what were some of the biggest emotional challenges, for you that you faced?
Yeah, I mean, so then it became interesting. I think forgiving others,
Mhm.
is easier than forgiving yourself.
Mhm.
And so the forgiveness of others came first, and then I had I had that. So now
Mhm.
the only person that I had to confront was me.
Mhm.
Um, and and, you know, that's a lot, and, it's easy to play the victim, like, all those things happened to me, and that's why I was reacting the way I was, but at some point, I was making choices too that
Mhm.
were not healthy and were perpetuating cycles of trauma and addiction, and, you get in those trauma cycles, and it feels like an endless, merry-go-round, you can't get off, but doing the one little thing, like that little exercise, right? Like, just one little thing to make it stop just for a second,
Mhm.
and then again, it slows down the speed of that cycle,
Mhm.
and if you can get yourself into enough of those places to where you can even maybe take a step off for a minute,
Mhm. Mhm.
like, but to confront the the shame and guilt were 2 really huge emotions that I felt. It took a lot, and it was
Uh,
a lot of tears, and then in the last 2 years, I've oftentimes feel nauseous,
mhm.
especially for, like, leaning into the political space and, just how it works and compromising my soul in the name of progress and letting
Mhm.
go of some of the patriarchal things that are there. But I know that the more I release it, the more space it creates for new and amazing things to come in because I've seen that work.
Mhm.
So I just keep leaning in.
Yeah. Well,
And
and oh, go ahead.
no, no.
I was gonna say, you talk about, a lifelong journey to build, a self-advocacy campaign to constantly find fantastic joy. So, what does that mean? Like, what does fantastic joy mean to you now?
Contentment. I mean, like I say often, to my kids, like, it's okay to be happy and sad at the same time.
Mhm.
And the reality is, like, if you're not happy and sad at the same time, like, are you living? Like, that's life.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
just becoming, I think it's acceptance.
Mhm.
Acceptance and gratitude. Um, like, that's what joy means to me. And
Okay.
life isn't always great. It's really
Yeah.
hard sometimes. But, like, recognizing that is not, not spiritually bypassing, recognizing it's hard, but choosing optimism anyway. One of my favorite authors and thought leaders, Brad Stolberg, calls it tragic optimism. And
Mhm.
so leaning into that idea a lot.
Well, no, and I agree with you, and it's something that I say a lot to people too, this idea that you can be happy and sad at the same time, like both of those things can exist at the same time, right? It doesn't have to be one or the other. And also to your point, like, yes, I mean, having these emotions, experiencing things like sadness is, that is part of life. That is part of being human. And you know, feelings of sadness, which is separate from, severe depression, but feelings of sadness is something that people do. They experience, they deal with all the time, and they can get through it, right? And that is part of life, right? So to your point, just sort of like acknowledging that, embracing that, accepting that, and it sounds like really having, and then to your point, having that gratitude and appreciation for the other things in life. Did I?
Well, and choosing healing too, right? Like
Yeah.
it is a choice. I mean, life is hard. The
Yeah.
hard's inevitable. The
Yeah.
healing choice, right? And so leaning into that, um, it creates a lot more joy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, so, the people who are listening to this podcast are primarily burned out working moms. And that's obviously going to be a little bit different for all of them. But I'm curious, like, what do you feel like are some simple ways that these burned out moms can start to reconnect to themselves and their own joy?
So the most critical component of my transformation has been the power of creativity. And
Hmm.
so I leaned in. I mean, I've been journaling and doodling and writing and all the things in different places over the years since I was a teenager. It's always been a way I've processed my trauma. But as I leaned into who am I if I'm not Leah the politician? Who am I if I'm not like, and I started to realize like, I'm an artist, I'm an author, I'm a creator, and we all are creators. And I think that's the thing we forget, right? Like, we think we have to create something with a purpose, but the power of creativity to transform your life cannot be overstated enough. Like, it is such a powerful tool. And so, for me, I mean, I've leaned into intuitive painting and intentional creativity. And even getting trained as an intentional creativity cura with my teacher and mentor Shiloh Sophia and Emily Greaves, and like leaning into that magical space that allows me to connect to me and
Mhm.
channel the divine that's in me and connect to my higher power, whatever and whatever whoever whatever that is for you. It's the universe, Jesus, whatever. But connecting to that through your own self, through the
Mhm.
power of creativity. So, for me, that's been critical. And you can do little things like, I would say prayer dots is the most amazing little exercise that if you're sitting somewhere in a meeting and you're burned out and frustrated,
Mhm.
start making little hearts or little stars on your paper, but with intention.
Mhm.
With releasing that energy you're feeling or find gratitude for things that you are grateful for or do little prayer dots into love, whatever it is. But the literal act of then taking that energy and turning it into matter shifts
Mhm.
something in you. And so, and those are very little things. I've leaned into big, huge, massive paintings and big, huge
Mhm.
projects that have allowed that release in really big ways. But
Mhm.
from a very small thing, that's a tool that I do as well. So
Yeah, no, and that's really interesting and that's really helpful. And I appreciate you talking about that. One of the things that we've been spending a lot of time talking about is obviously, the impact of your political career, on your life, on your burnout, and needing and wanting to make these changes. And then, of course, the other important part of this is your role as a mom, right? Like that's all tied into this too. So one of the things that you have said before and you talk about is being an imperfect mom, right? And so I'm wondering, like, how has embracing imperfection changed the way that you show up for your kids?
Well, there's a lot less pressure. Right?
Sure.
Like, if the baseline is, "I'm gonna mess up," like, well, good, we're starting in a really great place.
Okay, well, yeah,
But
no, go ahead.
in all seriousness, no, it allows me to show up more authentically, right? Like, that was one thing felt like I never heard a lot as a kid was,
Mhm,
"I'm sorry." Like,
mhm,
I messed up, like,
mhm,
from the adults in my life, right?
mhm,
And demonstrating that to my kids, like, "I'm not perfect." My daughter just started middle school. I told her, "I'm not gonna navigate every situation with you exactly right." Like, it's
mhm,
hard. Being in middle school
mhm.
is hard, and but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna show up, and I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna mess up,
Mhm,
but when I do, it's only because I'm trying and I'm learning too, and we can learn together, and I'm not perfect, and so just trying to approach everything like that and then own when I make mistakes, we're moms, we lose our patience. We sometimes yell when we don't mean to yell, like,
mhm.
"Stop fighting with your brother." Um, but but just owning those moments, like,
Yeah.
I wasn't quite regulated there. That was
Mhm.
on me, and I'm sorry. So,
Well, and to your point, I mean, acknowledging that we're not perfect, which nobody is, right? Perfection does not exist, and
yes.
so you talk about like taking the pressure off, right? And being more authentic, which, I imagine is really helpful for you and for her. You're really sort of focusing more on that, on the relationship, on the connection, right? But then the other part of that too is not only is that maybe, helpful for you because there's less pressure, but it's also showing her that it's okay to not be perfect, right? And it's okay to make mistakes and that, we're all human, right? And that we can make mistakes and we can a lot of times repair those mistakes. Like we can make choices after those mistakes to kind of yeah, to essentially like repair things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just being human, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it is. It's just being human, but also I think that a lot of moms do put a lot of pressure on themselves to be perfect, whether they realize it or not,
Yeah.
and I do think that it's really important just to sort of, be continuing to have those conversations and that constant reminder that we're not perfect and it's okay. And it's okay for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
how do you talk about being present with your family, having that connection. So how do you balance that with still prioritizing your own healing and growth?
Uh, well, I think part of that too is as a mom, giving myself permission to say, like, sometimes I need time to take care of myself.
Mhm.
And again, it's demonstrating to my kids that I know that my taking care of myself is an important priority because when I do, I'm a better mom and I'm a more present mom and I can do all
Mhm.
the things better. And I think we're often told that that's not okay, right? Like we just have to give and give and give to everybody else. And there's a lot of that still, but setting that boundary to say, I need to take some time for myself and whatever that looks like. Obviously, it looks different for every person, but
Mhm.
leaning into that and recognizing that that's okay. Like it's
Mhm.
giving yourself permission to take care of yourself um as a priority. So,
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. So you've obviously, moved away from politics, right? I think you said it's been about 7 years now. So so can you tell us a little bit about like what is the work that you do now?
yeah. Well, really it's only been a year and a half. So, cuz I stayed behind the scenes cuz I
Yes,
just
okay.
couldn't quite let it go.
Yes, okay.
But yeah, so now I'm an artist, so I do paintings, artwork, and then I also teach intuitive painting, intentional creativity, which is essentially spiritual medicine painting. Again, no art skills required, just allowing people to connect and create and process and move energy and trauma and create space for happiness and joy and all of the things. And just reconnect to our power of creativity, right? And so I do that. I live in Colorado, so I do in-person stuff here in Colorado, as well as retreats in Teotihuacan, Mexico, which is where I've been going for 15 years now, and where the crack was opened at the very beginning of this whole journey. And so I've returned many times. And then after my book came out in 2022, started leading my own groups there to really share the wisdom and inspiration that I've been taught, um, and then experienced myself through this really profound transformation, to help women connect to themselves, find that divine, their own voice, their own creativity. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, for women who are wanting to learn more about you and your work, I know you said, you do in-person things in Colorado, and obviously, for people who don't live locally, you do offer, these retreats and whatnot. You talk about your book, like where can people go to learn more about all of those things, you and the work that you do?
Yeah, my website is just findingfantasticjoy.com, so
Okay.
pretty easy, and then on social media, um, Leah Johnson, Finding Fantastic Joy, you'll find me.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but and one of the things on 2026 I am going working towards is creating some online intentional women's circles that leverage that power of creativity regularly. So that's an offering that's coming here soon too.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, and I will include all of that, in the show notes, for anybody who's interested in learning more. So before we kind of wrap up for today, if you could leave the moms who are listening, with one final message, one final piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, so I say this often. After working in politics for 25 years, I am overtly aware of how the world is, but I choose to live in it as I want it to be. And that's with joy and contentment and creativity. And so I say, live in the world as you want it to be, not as it
Mhm.
is.
Feel like that is advice that could be helpful to a lot of people right now, not just working moms. But yeah, no, that's really great. I appreciate you saying that. So this has all been really interesting. I really do appreciate you sharing your story. I think it's so helpful. I think it's wonderful the work that you're doing. You're taking these past experiences that you've had and you're turning them into, you're turning your work into a way to help these other women, which I think is so wonderful. And again, I do appreciate you taking time out of your day and your life to share that with us. So, for the moms who are listening, as always, if any of this resonates, if you found any of this to be helpful, please look Leah up in, online in the work that she does. I'll include that information in the show notes. And I also encourage you to please share this podcast with any other moms that you could use some additional support, because we are all in this together.
Thanks for having me, Christy.
Before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to check in with you. If anything in today's conversation brought up strong emotions or felt heavy, or if you're feeling overwhelmed, I encourage you to pause, ground yourself, and reach out to someone you trust or a qualified mental health professional. And if you are in immediate danger or experiencing thoughts of harming yourself, please contact your local emergency number. If you're in the United States, you can call or text to 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline.